Paratmanamekam Jagadbijamadyam Niriham Nirakaram Onkar Vedyam Yato Jayate Palyate Yena Vishvam Tamisham Bhaje Liyate Yatra Vishvam. Hari Om Tat Sat. Hari Om Tat Sat. Hari Om Tat Sat. Dear devotees, so today we are into the last session of this 13th chapter of Bhagavad Gita, and today we shall just summarize this entire chapter. If we look into the background of Bhagavad Gita, what is the background of Bhagavad Gita? We see the scene is the battlefield of Kurukshetra, where on the one side we have the Kauravas, and on the other side we have the Pandavas. And we find Arjun, who is fully determined and resolved to fight the Kauravas. Kauravas, they represent the side of Adharma. Pandavas, they represent the side of Dharma. And this is the battle between Dharma and Adharma, which is eternally going on. It will eternally go on. The question is, which side do we belong to? So here Arjun, who is on the side of Dharma, determined to wage this battle against the Adharma, he comes to the battlefield with a firm resolution that he is going to wage this war. But right at that moment, in that juncture, we find he is overcome by grief. He is totally overpowered by sorrow and delusion. Now this is very interesting. What made Arjuna suddenly become so weak, overcome by sorrow and delusion? Now here Arjuna is representing all of us. We, the so-called the men and women of this world, in general, you will find that we are all overpowered or drowned in this ocean of sorrow and delusion. If we just look into the state of humanity in general, we will see that humanity is drowned in the ocean of the samsara, which is full of sorrow and delusion. Now, it is Sri Krishna who shows Arjuna the way to come out of this ocean of sorrow and delusion. How do we do that? So here Krishna is the great teacher, the Jagat Guru, Bhagavan Shri Krishna, and his teachings are immortal for all times. So Krishna is showing the way to the entire human race, to all of us, through Arjuna. So what is the way that we come out of this ocean of sorrow and delusion? Suppose if we are drowned in the water and we are trying to come out of it, there should be a way that we first come to the surface and we come out of the water, is it not? Similarly, we are all drowned in this ocean of sorrow and delusion here, and everyone is struggling to come to the surface. It's a fact of life. Everyone wants to be freed from sorrow in some way or the other. Everyone is trying all the possible means that he or she knows of, and he or she is trying to employ all the means possible to come out of this grief. But we fail. None of the known means, which usually we believe that these means will help us to come out of this ocean of sorrow and suffering, can actually make us free from this. The way is one and one alone, which our Shastras show us. Here Bhagavan Sri Krishna is showing us that way, how to come out of this situation where we find ourselves completely drowned in the ocean of sorrow and delusion. This is our state. So from that we can make out the tremendous relevance and utility of this great study. What is the utility of this study? There is a prayojana. What is the prayojan? Prayojan means what? The utility. Ultimately, what is the use of studying this great scripture? What is its relevance to you and me? The relevance is in this point that this is the only way by which we who are drowned in this ocean, we can first struggle to come to the surface and then come out of this water of all the problems. So, Sri Krishna is showing us a beautiful, a timeless, a time-tested method, a method which has been tested by all the great rishis and sadhakas in the past, and which is for all times. And this is the only way by which the human being can come out of this situation, this predicament. So what is the way? The 13th chapter starts with the presentation of two things. Krishna says, there is one dimension of reality which is known as Kshetra. What is Kshetra? Krishna says, Idam Shariram. He uses two beautiful words. Shariram literally means body. And this body is referred to as Idam. If you remember, this is how we started the whole discussion. Idam means this. Anything which is an object, it is always referred to by use of the pronoun called this. And whenever we refer to our own self, we use the pronoun I. Actually speaking, this I and this, they are absolutely different from each other. So Krishna first presents what is this? What is this Idam? This Shariram. Shariram means everything that is changing, everything that is perishable, everything that is temporary. Now see, we have to check our own experiences. This is all fully experiential. There is nothing theoretical here. We have to check into our own identity and personality and find out, see, in us there is one dimension which is continuously undergoing change. This is what is Idam. This is what is this. This cannot be I. This is the first thing Krishna is pointing us very clearly. So everything that is changing, everything that is known is Idam. Now in this Idam, everything comes. Starting from Maya, the causal body, everything that proceeds from Maya, this entire Vishwa Prapancha, this entire universe, cosmos, everything that we are seeing and experiencing, all the three states of human experience. Everything means what? Jagrat, Swapna and Sushupti. No one is experiencing anything out of these three. We are either in the waking state, or we are in the dream state, or we are in the sleep state. All the three is actually Idam. We are none of these things. So, kshetra means everything that is known. And one who is knowing this kshetram, he is kshetragya, which is referred to by the pronoun called I. So, right in the beginning, Krishna is telling us that, see, this I cannot be this, and this cannot be I. They are totally of different characteristics. They belong to two different kinds of manifestations of divinity. One is matter, other is consciousness. Consciousness can never be matter, and matter can never be consciousness. These are totally two different things. Now, Krishna is saying in the first two verses, itself, Krishna is completely giving out the secret. The secret is that Krishna says, one who is knowing this kshetra is kshetragya. The knower of the kshetra is known as kshetragya. He is the so-called I, the knower, the drashta. Now, what is this true nature of this kshetragya? The true nature of this jiva, what is this true nature of this reflected consciousness? That is what is the point of inquiry. Now, if you all remember that illustration of the sun, this should be very clear before our eyes. Just imagine there are hundreds of pots on the ground, and in every pot there is water, and the sun is up in the sky, actually speaking, nothing to do with the pot and the water. But even then, that sun is reflected in the waters of the pot. Now just imagine if every reflected sun inside each pot, again I repeat, every reflected sun inside each pot, if those reflected suns, if they think that they are limited to that particular pot, this is our state of bondage. Now, if this reflected suns inside the pot, if they inquire into their own source, from where is this reflection coming? Where will they end up? That is the question. They will be discovering every reflected sun inside these pots, they will be discovering themselves as that sun up in the sky, absolutely unconnected with the pots and the water, absolutely free. That is the real nature of kshetragya. Kshetragya means the reflected consciousness or the reflected suns. If the reflected suns, they begin to search for their own source, they will discover themselves to be that supreme sun, which is eternally free, which is eternally pure, which is eternally awakened, which is never in darkness. Now this very thing we have to apply to our own personality. In our own personality, this body-mind complex is just like a pot, in which that supreme consciousness, which is Ishvara or Parabrahman, is getting reflected. And this reflection in each one of us is what is referred to as kshetragya. Now the true nature of kshetragya is what? When we begin to inquire into it, we will discover that we are nothing but that infinite being called Ishvara or Paramatma or Parabrahman. This will be a matter of discovery. Now this is how we have to uplift ourselves by ourselves. We who are drowned in the kshetra. Now Arjuna's situation was what? He was drowned in the ocean of sorrow and delusion. Is it not? This is our condition. Humanity in general is completely drowned in the ocean of sorrow and delusion. What is the meaning of being drowned in ocean of sorrow and delusion? The meaning is very simple. To be drowned in kshetra, to be drowned in this body, mind, and everything that we are seeing outside through the body and mind, to be completely drowned to be completely identified, to be completely attached, unquestioningly attached, unquestioningly identified with this kshetra is our state of bondage. In this state, no one is aware of kshetragya actually. So it is a matter to be questioned. We who are completely drowned in the ocean of kshetra, no one is aware of kshetragya. We have taken kshetra to be unquestioningly real. We have taken this so-called changing dimension to be absolutely real. This is our present state of awareness and understanding. This is what is our wrong vision. Now Krishna will talk about the correct vision. He will be clearing our eyesight. He will be giving us the right vision. What is the true vision? Presently our vision is completely blurred and completely distorted. And that is why we are suffering in life. So, to be drowned in this ocean means what? To be completely drowned in this kshetra, unquestioningly, through identification, through attachment. How do we come out of this state of being drowned in the ocean? Just imagine if you are inside a swimming pool, or if you are inside a lake, if you are in the bottom of the lake, you try to swim and you try to come to the surface, is it not? You have to do it yourself. No one is going to come to your help. This is what Krishna teaches in the 6th chapter. Uddhared atmana atmanam, atmanam avasadayet. So beautiful teaching. Krishna says, you have to uplift yourself by yourself. How do you do that? This is the way. What is the way? Now, Krishna beautifully tells us certain disciplines to be practiced. Unless we put those disciplines into practice, we cannot swim to the surface. Now, we want to be on the surface without doing these practices. This is the problem with us. We don't want to do all these practices. We don't want to practice Viveka and Vairagya. We don't want to practice non-attachment. And yet we want to be out of this predicament, which never will happen. These are the simple facts of life. We may try to cover it up with some sweet words, but it won't work. To really make this whole science a reality, the most central point of this entire enterprise is the practice of certain disciplines. And Sri Krishna enumerates a list of very important disciplines without the practice of which no one can come to the surface of this ocean. Coming to the surface of the ocean is the first thing. Coming out of the ocean will be the second thing. Unless we put these disciplines into practice, none of us can come out of this predicament. So what are those wonderful practices? Actually speaking, these practices are what in Vedanta known as sadhana chatushtaya. To put it in a technical language, nothing to worry about, there are fourfold disciplines, sadhanas. Without putting these things into practice, no one can come out of this predicament. So Krishna says, what are these disciplines? If you remember, from verses 7 to 12, actually speaking, we who are sadhakas, we are all sadhakas. Sadhaka means a person who is now striving to come out of this ocean. We who are drowned in this kshetra, we are now swimming. We want to swim and come to the surface. How do we come to the surface? That act of coming to the surface is through these disciplines. When we put these disciplines into practice, slowly you will be rising higher and higher and higher, and you will come to the surface, and then next step will be to come out of the water itself. So what are these beautiful practices? Krishna says, I am repeating because this part is the heart of this entire enterprise, and this is directly the most important thing as far as the sadhakas are concerned. What is that things which we are going to practice? These things have to be practiced, without which none can come out of this strange situation into which we have fallen. So these practices are what? Amanitvam, adambhitvam, ahimsa, kshantirarjavam, acharyopasanam, shaucham, stairyam, atma vanigraha. Translations. I'll translate simply. Practice of humility. Now the opposite of humility will be that which will make us more and more drowned in the kshetra. Understand the importance of this. The opposite of humility is what? Arrogance. More we are arrogant, more we are proud, this false arrogance, it will make us more and more drowned in the waters of kshetra. So how do we come out of it? Humility. Humility is the very ornament of a spiritual person. The first thing is amanitvam. Second, adambhitvam, unpretentiousness. All this show off and pretension has got no place in spiritual life. Opposite of this unpretentiousness is what? Showing off. The more we have these tendencies, we are actually drowning more and more in the ocean of kshetra. So you understand the importance of these practices? Without putting these things into practice, we cannot come to the surface of this ocean. So, amanitvam, adambhitvam, ahimsa, non-injury. When we have the tendency to injure the other person, we are going more and more deeper into this ocean of samsara. Ahimsa. Kshanti, forbearance. Opposite of forbearance, no forbearance. Always reacting, always retaliating. This tendency to constantly be in conflict. The human mind is such that it always wants to, it relishes to be in conflict. To more and more to be in a state of conflict, or rather I should say a frame of mind in which we are constantly colliding with something else. Collision. Swami Ranganathanji Maharaj used to beautifully say, like billiard bottles. The billiard balls, they keep on colliding with each other. So human beings we are just like billiard balls. We are constantly colliding with each other. Can we merge? Instead of colliding, instead of being in conflict, can we merge? That merging without colliding is the science of spirituality. So when we don't forbear, when we are constantly colliding with something else, when we are constantly in conflict with something else, we are drowning more and more into the waters of the samsara. Then, arjavam, very important virtue. Arjavam is simplicity and straightforwardness. What is inside, it is on the tongue, it is outside. No duplicity. In spiritual life, there is absolutely no place for duplicity or hypocrisy. Inside or out, it has to be as transparent as it can be possible. Sri Ramakrishna used to stress this point immensely. This straightforwardness, this simplicity is the ornament of a spiritual person. Opposite of this is what? Cleverness, crookedness. These things will make us more and more drowned in the ocean of samsara, kshetra. Then acharyopasanam. Acharya upasanam means serving the teacher, serving the guru. It's a great austerity. That person from whom we learn the lessons of spirituality, by serving that person, this is a great practice in our tradition. Guru Seva, Guru Shushrusha. Nothing can be greater than that. It is said that people can cross the ocean of samsara just by serving the ideal Guru. So, acharyopasanam. Then shaucham, cleanliness. Cleanliness is not only physical cleanliness. More important than physical cleanliness is the cleanliness of the heart, the purity of the mind. That is more important. Unless the mind is pure, there is no way out. An impure mind means we are more and more drowned in the waters of kshetra. More and more the mind becomes pure, it will begin to float. Opposite of that is we go drowning and drowning and drowning. Impure mind means more we are drowned in the waters of Kshetra. A pure mind is a light mind. It begins to float. It begins to come on the surface and then vanish into the truth. So the more the mind is purer, the more we come close to divinity. More it is impure, more we are drowned in this dimension of Kshetra. Then steadiness, sthiryam, steadfast on the path of self-knowledge. Steadfast on the path of coming to the surface of the water. It is not that you strive little bit and then give it up. When you are striving to come to the surface of the water, you have to continuously strive, not stop till you come to the surface. This is another meaning of Swami Vivekananda's great utterance, We use that utterance in all contexts. Swami Vivekananda has that famous utterance where he says, "Arise, awake, and stop not till the goal is reached." What a beautiful statement. But what actually means is this: do not stop. You have to be steadfast and steady in your practice, in your striving to come to the surface of the water and realize the reality. So steadiness has to be there, sthiryam. Then Atma Vinigraha. Atma Vinigraha is self-control, self-restraint. Restraint of the body, restraint of the sensory system is the very crux of spiritual life. Opposite of this is what? Indulgence. Indulging in all kinds of so-called sensory pleasures. Humanity, the more and more we indulge in the so-called the pleasures of the senses, we are drowning into the waters of Kshetra. And the opposite of that is self-restraint. Using this body, mind and sense organs very intelligently. A very intelligent way of handling this body. This body is the most precious thing that we have. It has to be handled very intelligently, not for the sake of bhoga, but for the sake of yoga. It is through yoga that we come to the surface. Through bhoga, we further drown into the waters of Kshetra. Through yoga, we come to the surface. So yoga is what? The way by which we come to the surface of this water of this samsara and then realize our true nature. So Atma Vinigraha. Indriyartheshu Vairagyam. Intense dispassion for the objects of pleasure. The opposite of that is intense liking for the objects of pleasure. The more we have liking for the objects of pleasure, more we are going to drown in this water. And through Vairagya, having dispassion for the objects of pleasure, we shall come to the surface. Anahankara evacha, absence of ahankara. Janma, Mrityu, Jara, Vyadhi, Dukkha, Doshanudarshanam. A wonderful practice by which we see evil. What is good in this kshetra? What is good in this kshetra? That is the question. For a Viveki, truly speaking, there is nothing which is pleasant in this changing dimension. Here everything is evil in one way or the other. Birth is evil. Death is evil. Is it not? Birth and death, both are evil. And in between all the stages of life, it is only a Aviveki finds things to be very romantic here. Shankaracharya says, it is only an Aviveki finds romance here. Actually, there is nothing romantic here. It's all Janma, Mrityu, Jara, Vyadhi, Dukkha, Doshanudarshanam. Janma Dukkham, Balyavastha Dukkham, Yavvanam Dukkham, Vardhakyam Dukkham, Sarvam Dukkham, Mrityu Dukkham. All stages of life, if you just see, if you just probe into the different kinds of experiences which we are going through, you will find that it is a series of experience of dukkham in one way or the other. It is only an aviveki finds this to be very romantic. For a Viveki, it's all dukkham and dukkham and dukkham. And that is what Krishna says. Anityam asukham imam lokam prapya bhajasva mam. This lokam is anityam and it is asukham. Knowing this, bhajasva mam, worshipping. So, janma mrityu jara vyadhi dukkha doshanu darshanam. Then what? Very important point. Asaktir anabhishvangaha putra dara grihadishu. Non-attachment and non-identification with putra dara grihadishu. See, as I said, these are the things which make us drown in this ocean. What makes us drown in this ocean? Tremendous infatuation and blind attachment to different entities called as children and husbands and wives and this relative and that relative. This blind infatuation, which is purely genetic, this genetics which actually blinds our vision, because of which we never see things clearly. This has to be changed. Knowing the facts and reality. This is all changing dimension. This is kshetra. What belongs to here? Nothing belongs to you. Everything is prakriti here. The things with which we are so blindly attached and infatuated, they are all just for 2 minutes. It's all gone. And it is because of this blind attachment and infatuation that we suffer in life. So, what is the way out? The more we are infatuated with these so-called genetic things, the more we are drowned in this ocean of samsara. So the opposite of that is the way to come out of these waters. So opposite of that is what? Asakti, non-attachment. Anabhishvangaha, non-identification. For what? Putra dara grihadishu means everything on this side, not to be attached and not to be identified with the kshetra. Nityam cha samachittatvam ishtanishtopapatishu. Having that equanimity, equanimous state of mind regarding everything here, neither getting elated when something favorable happens, nor getting depressed when something goes wrong. This equipoise of the mind is a wonderful quality. It is through this equanimity of the mind that you will succeed in coming to the fore of this ocean. Maicha ananya yogena bhakti avyabhicharini. Beautiful. 2 things Krishna says. Mai avyabhichari bhakti. Unswerving bhakti. The opposite of that, completely forgetting God and drowning in the ocean of the samsara. What will make us come out of this is avyabhichari bhakti. Unswerving devotion to whom? To Ishvara. But to have devotion for Ishvara, we should know what is the true nature of Ishvara. We have to understand what is this Ishvara. That is the main purpose of this Adhyaya, as we have told in the beginning. This chapter is started for what? Ishvarasya tattva nirdharanartham kshetradhyaya arabhyate. This chapter is commenced in order to ascertain and determine what is the true nature of Ishvara, and then having that unswerving devotion. A devotion which does not swerve. It is not that 2-minute devotion in the morning and 2 minutes in the evening. It is an unswerving, unbroken, a state of mind which is completely inclined towards Ishvara, the supreme reality. That is how we come out of this ocean. You cannot come out of this ocean without bhakti and jnana. That is the main secret. Opposite of that is people live totally forgetful of God, completely drowned in the kshetra, and they suffer. Unendingly they suffer. Sri Ramakrishna very beautifully presents extraordinary presentation by Sri Ramakrishna. Sri Ramakrishna says, we are like that camel in the desert which goes on chewing the thorny bush, and it bleeds and bleeds and bleeds, and yet it won't stop chewing the thorny bush. We are just like that. We are drowned in the waters of this so-called kshetra, And we are suffering, and yet we don't want to come out of it. Yet we cling and cling and cling and cling. This blind clinging, this is a chronic disease with which we are all suffering. Unless we overcome this disease, unless we treat this disease, there is no way out. And this is the medicine which Krishna is prescribing to all of us. The medicine by applying which we can slowly come out of this situation. So, avyabhichari bhakti, unswerving devotion, coupled with ananya yoga. These two things are beautiful practices. Ananya yoga means one-pointed concentration or one-pointed meditation. Just imagine, avyabhichari bhakti and ananya yoga. Unswerving devotion for Ishvara backed by one-pointed meditation. This is how you are coming to the surface of the water. You understand? You cannot come to the surface of this ocean without these two practices. Without having that unswerving devotion. Now, what is this unswerving devotion? I'll touch upon this later. Shankaracharya gives a beautiful definition of who is a bhakta, who is having this kind of right kind of a bhakti. What is this bhakta and what is this bhakti? Shankaracharya so beautifully points out. When we have that kind of an unswerving devotion for Ishvara, coupled with or backed with that one-pointed meditation, where the mind has got no other object to think about, where the emotions have nothing else to feel about, when all of our convictions are directed towards Ishvara, that is the way you come out of this situation in which we find ourselves to be completely drowned in this ocean of kshetra. Two things, avyabhichari bhakti backed by ananya yoga, unswerving devotion backed by one-pointed meditation. Vivikta desha sevitvam maratir janasamsadi, the tendency to go into solitude and avoid worldly company. If you want to come to the surface of this ocean, there should be the practice of going into solitude once in a while and avoid the company of people who are drowned in this ocean and who take delight in drowning more and more. This is the point. So we should avoid the company of those people who delight, who relish in being drowned in this kshetra. A bhakta will never relish the company of such people. A bhakta will relish the company of bhaktas, those who are striving to come to the surface of this water. Adhyatma jnana nityatvam tattva jnanartha darshan. Adhyatma jnana nityatvam means what? Steadfast on the path of self-knowledge. And tattva jnanartha darshanam. This person's vision is fixed on the goal of mukti. This is the meaning of tattva jnanartha darshanam. His vision is fixed on the goal of mukti and is steadfast on the path of self-knowledge. These are the practices Krishna sees. This is the doctor's prescription for the disease that we are suffering with. Now, if you're really serious about your disease, then you will take this medicine seriously. That's the point. The problem with many of the so-called people are that we want to be cured without taking the medicine, which is never going to happen. So if we have to cure about this disease, you have to take these medicines regularly, 3 times a day, after breakfast, after lunch, dinner. That is how the doctors prescribe. But here it is not 3 times a day. It is continuous practice of these disciplines. In spiritual life, there is no break. All these practices have to be just like we breathe. We live this kind of a life. When we begin to live this kind of a life, this kind of practices, then you will see that, you will see for yourself. You will slowly come to the surface. This is how we can come out of the situation in which we find ourselves drowned in the ocean of sorrow and delusion, shoka and moha. This was Arjun's situation, and we are all in that predicament. We can come out of it by putting these things into practice. And when we put these things into practice, Krishna says, we become competent to understand the true nature of Kshetragya. That is the next point. Just imagine if you are drowned in the waters, you are in the very bottom of the so-called lake, how will you understand what is there on the surface? It is unless you come to the surface, you will not understand what is on that side. The competence to understand what is on the surface and beyond that, you need some competence. These practices make us competent and eligible to understand what is the true nature of Kshetragya. Then Krishna describes the true nature of Kshetragya, which is a wonderful description, where Krishna says, what is the true nature of Kshetragya? He says, Keyam yat tat pravakshyami yad gyatva amritam ashnute anadimat param brahma nasat tanna saduchyate. Beautiful. What is this true nature of Kshetragya? It is anadimat. It is beginningless. Nasat tanna asaduchyate, about which you cannot say it is being or it is non-being. These things we had seen in detail. I don't want to go into the details of it now here, but that is the description of this true nature of Kshetragya. So there, in that description, further Krishna says, what is that? Now see, this is our true nature. In ignorance, when we are drowned in the Kshetra, we are totally gripped by unending sorrow and delusion. Whereas our true nature is what? We are not limited to any of these so-called body-mind complexes. The sun which is up in the sky, it is not limited to any of the pots down. It is free. So what is the true nature of this Kshetragya? Krishna says, Sarvata panipadam tat sarvato kshishiromukham sarvata shrutimaloke sarvam avritya tishtati. Amazing. Now when we understand first that we are not the Kshetra, we are not this changing dimension, we are the witness of this changing dimension. When the reflected sun realizes itself to be the sun up in the sky, and from there it says that it is I who am reflected in all the pots. So it finds itself everywhere. I am not limited anywhere. But this vision will come only once you understand your separation from Kshetra. That is why the initial step in the spiritual sadhana is to understand our separation from this changing dimension with which we have become identified. Once we have accomplished this, then comes the next great realization. You will begin to see that I am everywhere. I am not limited to this one body-mind complex. That is Ishvara. That Ishvara is everywhere, and that is our true nature. Just like the sun up in the sky finds itself, it is I who am reflected in the waters in all these pots. I am not limited to any of these pots. I am inside all the pots, and I am beyond all the pots. This will be the vision. So sarvata panipadam tat sarvato kshishiromukham sarvata shrutimaloki sarvam avritya tishtati. That Ishvara is what? With so many ears, so many eyes, so many mouths, so many heads. That Ishvara is existing, pervading and permeating everything in this world. It is that one Ishvara which is appearing in the form of this world. In fact, the true vision is that there is nothing but Ishvara and Ishvara alone. It is that Ishvara which is appearing in the form of Kshetra as well as Kshetragya. That Kshetra is the lower aspect of Ishvara, and Kshetragya is the higher aspect of Ishvara. These two are the two aspects of that Supreme Ishvara. This understanding comes when we put all those disciplines into practice. Without putting those disciplines into practice, we will never understand what is being told here, the true nature of Kshetragya. So, Sarvata Panipadam Tat Sarvato Kshishiro Mukham Sarvata Shrutimalloke Sarvam Avritya Tishtati Sarvendriya Gunabhasam Sarvendriya Vivarjitam Asaktam Sarvabhrichaiva Nirgunam Gunabhoktricha. It is there, it is shining in all the Indriyas. It is beyond all the Indriyas. That is the vision. It is everywhere and yet it is beyond everything. That sun is beyond and at the same time it is shining in all the parts. That one supreme consciousness called Ishvara or Parabrahman, it is beyond everything and at the same time it is shining in everything. One of the beautiful outcome of this fact is that our whole evaluation of others changes here. We begin to see divinity in everybody. Everybody is divine. Every man is divine. Every woman is divine. This divinity and divinity alone. There is no man, there is no woman. It is Ishvara in so many forms. This is the true nature of Ishvara. When we understand the true nature of Kshetragya, it will be like this. Now, all these things can be understood only first when we come to the surface of the water. As long as we are drowned in the ocean of Kshetra, we will never be able to understand what is being described here as the true nature of Kshetragya. So for that, those disciplines have to be put into practice. And then, Bahirantascha bhutanam acharam charamevacha sukshmatvat tadavigyeyam durastham chantikechata. Beautiful. Bahir antascha. That Ishvara is outside, inside. Bhutanam charam acharamevacha. In all the moving and unmoving objects, that Ishvara is inside, outside. Ishvara alone is existing. Sukshmatvad. And that Ishvara being extremely subtle. It is avigyeyam. Very difficult to understand because it is extremely subtle. And durastham chantikechata. That Ishvara is very far away and yet it is extremely close to us. You remember what Shankaracharya had stated. Shankaracharya had stated, it is extremely far for those people who are unenlightened or those who are completely drowned in the Kshetra, those who are avivekis, those who are gripped by the disease of attachment to Kshetra. For them this Ishvara is millions and millions of years away. Shankaracharya says, literally in his bhashya he says, for such people God is millions and millions of years away. But for those who are detached, those who are having the spirit of dispassion, those who are vivekis, for them God is the nearest entity. Just imagine what promising statement it is. Is Ishvara anywhere far away? For a Viveki, Ishvara is the closest entity existing in the depth of our own hearts. It is not somewhere far away, not even here and there in temple or somewhere else. It is Ishvara alone who is existing. This vision will become a matter of reality for anyone who has got this great virtue of Viveka and Vairagya. Then, Avibhaktam cha bhuteshu vibhaktam evacha stitam bhuta bhartri cha tadgeyam grasishnu prabhavishnu cha. That one Ishvara is existing, undivided, in all the so-called divided things. Means all these different entities, apparently different, but actually one. It is one Ishvara appearing in the form of so many different entities. Jyotisham api tad jyoti tamasa paramuchyate Jnanam geyam jnanagamyam hridi sarvasya vishtitam. Then comes iti kshetram tatha jnanam geyam choktam samasata. Krishna says, in this way, Arjun, my dear children, I have told you what is kshetra and what is kshetragya. What is the true nature of kshetragya, I have told you. Now, now comes that very beautiful, important point, which is very much relevant to you and me. Krishna says, who will experience Ishvara. The question is, who will experience this Ishvara? We all want to experience Ishvara. As long as you are drowned in the waters of the ocean of the samsara, as long as you are drowned in this kshetra, as long as you are drowned in this changing dimension, Ishvara will never be a fact of reality in our life. But, so who will realize this Ishvara? Krishna says, my bhakta will realize me. So beautiful. Mad bhakta etad vigyaya mad bhavaya upapadyate. After having known all these things, after having known what is kshetra, after having known what is kshetragya, this bhakta, he will realize me. Shankaracharya makes an excellent, outstanding remark about who this bhakta is and what kind of bhakti he has got. So who is this bhakta? In his commentary he says, no, this is what we have to practice in life. Bhagavan Shankaracharya says there, this bhakta is a person whose conviction is saturated with the idea that it is that one Ishvara which is in the hearts of everybody in the form of kshetragya. Again I repeat, this is the point to be practiced. His conviction is saturated. You understand the meaning of saturation? Something which is overflowing. This bhakta's mind is overflowing, means there is no space for anything else here. Understand his psychology. Understand his antakaranam. And this bhakta is a person in whose antakaranam there is no space for anything else apart from this one idea, that it is that Ishvara alone which is appearing in the form of so many jivatmas here, kshetragyas. And what? Whatever I am seeing, whatever I am hearing, whatever I am experiencing, it is all nothing but Ishvara and Ishvara alone. Now this is not the ultimate experience. Bhakta lives with this conviction. Shankaracharya is talking about a conviction. He is talking about a nishtha, a tremendous nishtha, conviction, that it is that Ishvara which is existing in the form of all the jivas here, and whatever I am seeing, whatever I am hearing, it is all that Ishvara and Ishvara alone in so many forms. Now this is the conviction. A person whose mind is saturated with this kind of an idea, number one, he is the bhakta. Now we should find out, are we really bhaktas? A bhakta, again I'm repeating, he is a person in whose mind there is no space for any other thought apart from this. He or she is a true bhakta. And then what? He or she has got the tremendous conviction that whatever I am seeing is that Ishvara. Now this is the stepping stone to realization. The experience of Ishvara is preceded by this nishtha. That experience, or ultimate experience of Ishvara, is preceded by this tremendous conviction, this conviction with which the bhaktas live. Now this is what we have to practice in life. We have to learn to live with this kind of a nishtha, this kind of a conviction. That will ultimately make us come out of this ocean of the samsara. So ultimately, if you just think, it's a wonderful thing. What is the way to come out of this state in which we find ourselves completely drowned in this ocean? What is the way? You will find the way is bhakti. The way is jnana. It is through jnana and bhakti, backed by viveka and vairagya. Four things. Jnana and bhakti, backed by viveka and vairagya. This is the way how we can uplift ourselves from a state in which we find ourselves to be drowned in the waters of the samsara, owing to which we are suffering from untold miseries. We can come out of the state through this kind of a bhakti, through proper knowledge, and through vivek and vairagya. And when we have come to this kind of a state, now Krishna finally gives that correct vision. What is that correct vision? In 4-5 verses, beautiful, 4-5 verses now, 8 verses I think, towards the end. It's all, he's correcting our blurred vision. How to see things clearly. Seeing things clearly means, simply put, I don't want to repeat all those verses. There are 8-9 verses dealing with the correct vision. Presently we are suffering from the disease of wrong vision. And this wrong vision is the cause of all the sufferings which we have in life. When our vision is corrected, all the sufferings come to an end. And what is that correct vision? Samam sarveshu bhuteshu tishthantam parameshwaram vinashyatsu avinashyantam yah pashyati sa pashyati. Pashyati means seeing. A person who sees this, sees what? Samam sarveshu bhuteshu tishthantam parameshwaram. That Parameshwara is existing samam. Samam means equally. Equally, sarveshu bhuteshu. In everybody that Ishvara is existing equally. Just see the vision. What are we seeing and what is the reality? Vinashyatsu avinashyantam. In the perishable, the imperishable is existing. One who sees like this, he sees correctly. Now I'll give you a few examples of this, which Shankaracharya mentions in his bhashyas in different places, which is mentioned in different ways. We have different vessels made out of clay. Clay is there, and out of clay we have made a jug, we have made a pot, we have made a plate, we have made a glass. Now, owing to aviveka or owing to lack of correct vision, one person may see only jug, pot, plate and glass. That person is not seeing the clay. Not seeing the clay and only being focused on the pot and the jug and the glass and the plate is the wrong vision. What is the correct vision? The correct vision is, we begin to see it is clay which has become the pot. It is the clay which has become the plate. It is the clay which has become the jug. It is the clay which has become the glass. Means seeing the one in the many. If you remember, in the last class we had mentioned this. This journey of spiritual life is a journey from seeing the many to seeing one in the many. That is the first step. And then comes the ultimate stage where we don't see the many, we see only the one. Now we have the perfect vision. When we come to the ultimate vision that there is only one thing and existing here, our vision has become perfect. So in this illustration of this clay and the jug, you will see that initially we see only jug and pot and plate and glass. We have no idea that it is clay, and we are thinking that the jug and the pot is absolutely real. Tell me, is the jug and pot real? It will break. Can jug and pots exist eternally? It will break. But what is this jug and pot made up of? If your vision is shifted to that, the vision changes. It is the one clay which is appearing in the form of the plate and the jug and the pot and the glass. We begin to see the one in the many. We are slowly correcting our vision. And then the climax will be that for a so-called a Tattvajnani or an Atmajnani, he will see that there are no pots and clays and plates and glasses. It is only clay. The ultimate vision is that that person sees only clay. So here also, if you just see, initially we see the many here. Then we learn to see the one in the many. And finally we see that the many doesn't exist. It is one Ishvara and Ishvara alone. When we come to that point, our vision will be perfected. It is that one entity which is appearing in the form of Kshetra as well as Kshetrajna. This is what Krishna said in the second verse. Kshetra kshetragyayor jnanam yat tad jnanam matam mama. That is perfect knowledge in which you understand that both kshetra and kshetragya, they are actually speaking the ultimate Ishvara in two forms. Ultimately, it is nothing but Ishvara and Ishvara alone. So this is the beautiful vision which Sri Krishna gives towards the end of this 13th chapter. And this is the corrected vision. So all our striving is to gain this correct vision, this vision which is given to us only by the Shastras and the Guru. We should remember, it is only when we begin to follow the instructions of the Shastras, it is only when we begin to follow the instructions of the Guru, then only this comes. This cannot come from any other source. This cannot come from any other book as well. It has to come from the Shastras and the Guru alone. The Guru is the person, Ajnanatimirandasya Jnananjana Shalakaya, who opens our eyes and gives us the right vision of what this reality is. In this way, this Kshetra Kshetragya Vibhaga Yoga ends up with this beautiful, correct vision of reality. Now, before I end, one thing I would like to mention. Now, who is the demonstration of this wonderful thing which we have discussed here? You want to see the demonstration? All the great masters have been demonstrations of this great thing. The most modern, perfect demonstration of what we have studied, we have Bhagavan Sri Ramakrishna. Now, if you look into the life of Sri Ramakrishna, you will see all these things blazingly demonstrated. He is the demonstration. I always emphasize this point. If you want to know what the Shastra is talking about, you look into the life of Sri Ramakrishna. Do we find in Sri Ramakrishna's life even a grain of infatuation or attachment for Kshetra? Tell me. What do we find in Sri Ramakrishna's life? Even one grain of attachment to Kshetra, what we are talking about here as Kshetra, even one grain of attachment, even one grain of identification with Kshetra? What we are studying here, and look at the demonstration. So worshipping Sri Ramakrishna means what? It is not the question of just doing certain things ritualistically. We have to build, we have to emulate, we have to cultivate these qualities of detachment. We have to cultivate little bit of dispassion. We have to cultivate that avyabhichari bhakti. We have to cultivate that ananya yoga. These are the things. Now just tell me, don't you find avyabhichari bhakti perfectly existing in Sri Ramakrishna? Is there anything else in this so-called, this entity called Sri Ramakrishna apart from perfect bhakti? Bhakti means what? Bhagavan alone is existing, nothing else is existing. This is the ultimate vision of a bhakta. The beautiful demonstration which we find in Sri Ramakrishna's life. Brahma Satyam Jagad Mithya, demonstrated in Sri Ramakrishna's life. Shankaracharya's greatest utterance. Brahma Satyam Jagad Mithya, and Jiva is what? Brahmaiva. Jagat is what? Brahmaiva. It is Brahman and Brahman alone. It is clay and clay alone. There are no pots and plates and glasses here. It's one Ishvara alone. So where do we find the demonstration? Look into Sri Ramakrishna's life. A perfect demonstration of the fact that it is Ishvara and Ishvara alone who is existing here. So ultimately, before I wind up, the last point, what we have to do, we have to be bhaktas. In the language of Sri Krishna, we have to be bhaktas. And what is bhakta? As Shankaracharya beautifully says, who is a bhakta? A bhakta whose antakarana is saturated. The word saturation is beautiful. Overflowing. You know, saturation means overflowing. Overflowing with just one idea. What is that one idea? It is Ishvara and Ishvara alone. It is an astikya buddhi. Astikya buddhi, it is a shraddha. Initially it's a nishtha. It is not still an experience, but he is so firmly convinced. In the words of the Shastras and the Guru, he is so firmly convinced that it is Ishvara and Ishvara alone. It is Ishvara and Ishvara alone. With this conviction, when we begin to lead our lives, ultimately it will take us to the ultimate experience. So let us pray to that Parameshwaram to give us that conviction which Shankaracharya spoke about, and to give us that capacity to discriminate between Kshetra and Kshetragya. This chapter is Kshetra Kshetragya Vibhaga. So the way to come out of that situation in which we find ourselves drowned in this ocean of Kshetra, the way is to understand the separation of Kshetra and Kshetragya and understand the true nature of Kshetragya. This is the way out. This is what Krishna taught Arjuna. And when Arjuna got that right vision, then he was ready to face the battle. It is with this correct vision that we have to face this so-called Kshetra. We are seeing Kshetra, is it not? How do you handle it? This is the big question. How do we handle the samsara, this very perplexing and extremely confounding, changing dimension? How do you negotiate with it? You have to have the right vision. If you don't have the right vision, we are always messing with it. This is the human story. We are always mishandling it. So what is that way by which we can handle this so-called changing dimension? It is the knowledge of Ishvara. With that correct vision, you see, all of us will be able to perfectly handle it without getting disturbed and without getting overpowered by sorrow and delusion. This is the great message of Bhagavan Sri Krishna, which we have studied. So I pray to Krishna and that Parameshwara to give us this capacity to discriminate between Kshetra and Kshetragya and help us come out of this ocean of samsara. Again, I'm telling you, you have to do it yourself. Don't wait for some external help to come. This is the message of Sri Krishna. Uddhared Atmana Atmanam. You have to raise yourself by yourself. The path has been shown. Put into practice those disciplines and wonderful things can come out. Om Shanti 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 Hari Om Tasat.